Totally. Yeah. Just tougher in that, I mean, I had contracts to do pro wrestling, but when I did the numbers, I'm going to do 150 shows with 150 performances, and it's like you're on this just grind of performing. That's really challenging physically, challenging, spirit, like all the things. It's challenging. And when I weighed those things, I was like, wow, I could fight 3 times a year, make a couple $1 million, or I could work 200 dates a year and make the same amount of money. And it's like, well, that makes no sense whatsoever. Why wouldn't I work 3 dates or 2 dates a year? So it just became a value proposition for me, and I realized watching my brother go through it, it's a lot harder than everyone thinks. And it's like what Morrow's doing. You've got to commit your whole life, every day, every meal, every show, everything is about the performance, the moment, the event, the storyline, and then getting yourself to the next day to keep it going. I was like, that's real work. I never could commit to that.
And, speaking of your brother, obviously great pro wrestler, tremendous MMA fighter, yourself, obviously the legend himself, but what is your relationship like with Ken nowadays?
It's the same. We've healed each other, I hope, and opened a good door for, a relationship and stuff. So, yeah, but, now we're all old and retired and have little to talk about the old days. So I think we've just kind of settled down and we're growing into each other.
Do you look fondly back on those Lions Den days and him training you and things like that?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I loved it all. And, it was, I think I'm probably one of the last guys to go through a very traditional, development trajectory. I went to Japan. I lived in a dojo. I mean, I did all the stuff you could ever imagine. But it's like that journey really made me, a complete fighter and a complete person, and really helped develop me. So yeah, I loved the journey. It was crazy, but it allowed me now to do all this stuff that everyone thinks is impossible and ridiculous.
Absolutely, and your time in Japan is pretty well documented and pretty legendary as far as Pancrase is concerned. What do you think about your time over there in Japan? Did you really enjoy living over there? Did you enjoy the culture?
I loved it. I mean, I honestly, truly loved it. I mean, I came from the streets of California and from broken home, and I never really had much. So to see the organization of it, the structure of it, to be a part of the movement, and you could feel it. It was a movement over there. This was stuff. They were finding out, each event, like what it was going on and techniques, and the world was kind of converging into this moment. So. It was. I mean, I didn't appreciate it as much then as I do now because I was a young guy and I was, young and dumb. But as I look back, I realized, most people, very few people, will ever go through an experience like that. See be at the birth of the sport, contribute at that level. Be able to be a part, of the original group and the camaraderie and the risk, and it's like going to war, and. Only your body knows what happens. And we kind of did that thing where there's only a handful of us that, watched it all happen. We're a part of it, contributed, and then get to see the results.
Definitely. And one of your kind of big rivals over there in Pancrase, I don't know how much you follow the pro wrestling game in New Japan, but Minoru Suzuki, an old rival of yours, is still, at 47 years old, still one of the best pro wrestlers in the world. What are your kind of memories of Minoru Suzuki? You're actually not working, fighting him.
Oh, man, he was so smooth, so cool. Just the epitome of coolness. And my memories of him were, I learned to brush my teeth before every match from Minoru Suzuki. He'd always brush his teeth. I was like, wow, that's very thoughtful of him. And he finally explained to me how he breathed better and how it's so much more of a better vascular experience. So I took that from him. And I also took the idea or the hope that he would go through whole matches and never mess up his hair. Like his hair would remain the same. After 20 minutes, I'd be like, oh, if I could get technique so strong that I could do that, I would look amazing at the end of it. So he gave me a whole kind of, idea of presentation and sort of, in combat, and then the teeth thing. I had a lot of good memories. And he was one of my first teachers. When I first got to Japan, and I was living at the dojo, and I had no idea what I got myself into or what was going to happen. And he was one of the first guys. He spoke very little English at the time. He was one of the first guys that broke down the mechanics of the game and helped me with some very fundamental things that helped me beat Boss Rutan and not get my face kicked off too many times. So he was instrumental in my whole career. But yeah, I can't believe he's still going.
Yeah, and he's really, really still successful over there. I don't know how much you follow the New Japan wrestling scene, but it's crazy how he's still going and he's still one of the top acts. Yeah,
I think it's amazing, and he had a great style of wrestling and machismo performance that it resonates. I think to this day. But he's still going. God knows how.
And you mentioned there Boss Rutan, who obviously, you fought, I think 3 times, and, you lost him, you won 1 fight. What was your kind of overall outtake on Boss Rutan being one of the few not Americans, but one of the few gaijins over there in Japan while you and Ken were there as well?
Well, I loved Boss the moment I fought him and met him and stuff. And we developed just the nicest friendship, and still to this day, I produced him and Morrow's podcast, and so I see him once a week, and there's been a tremendous friendship. But yeah, we were all crazy back then because we were all deathly afraid and had no idea what was going on. So, anybody that kind of spoke English and was halfway decent and cool, you kind of ended up hanging out with. We developed a really nice friendship that extended for 3 fights, ironically enough. But we got to know each other real good.
Definitely. 3 legendary fights in Pancrase against Boss. Obviously, he's one of the best ever. You're one of the best ever. And it's funny that, Ken's over there, too, and there's always speculation and rumors. How close were you to ever fighting Ken in an actual MMA fight?
Pretty close. Like real close. I worked on it for almost 2 years and and then it fell apart one day, unfortunately. Which I think I'm glad it did. Secretly glad. It was going to be weird at the end of the day. But everyone was really into it. It was definitely a moneymaker for a while, but unfortunately, it didn't happen. I would have bet money it was going to, though.
Now, this might be a crazy question or a dumb question. Who do you think would have won?
Oh, definitely me. Yeah, I waited an appropriate time until Ken was both old and not as good as me. as a good pro wrestling story should go.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Kind of moving on just a little bit into your time in the UFC. I know obviously you were dominant in rings in Japan. Had a great fight in Valley Tudo, Japan against Enson Anao, but in UFC, it's kind of where you really, really made a huge name for yourself and really expanded, the quote-unquote, the legend. What was it like kind of in the UFC at that point as you're slowly kind of building yourself up and then you become the middleweight champion, a.k.a. the light heavyweight champion?
It was really cool because the sport was very young, and the old owner Bob was very much a music guy, very much a talent, driven, artistic type guy. So he had a great vision for the sport, and it wasn't a sport then, it was a spectacle. He had a great vision for the spectacle that morphed into a sport. But it was very friendly, very much, hey, can you beat this guy? Oh, I think so. Okay, I'll make the match. Like, it was really, about as basic as you can get. But it was very exciting because, we knew that, what we were doing was very different. We knew that it was, a lot of people didn't like it, but we had this very firm belief in its development and its use and its applications and stuff. So, yeah, it was just cool. It was neat to be there. And then it was also very scary because, everybody from around the world was sort of gathering their eyes on it and, marching over towards it. So we were, constantly getting, new styles and new dangers and new things to kind of worry about, study. And as a young man, it's just very, very intimidating, but very exciting study.